oil power, royal influence, and complicated relationship with the superpowers. That's what people usually know Saudi Arabia for. But what if we can help you see much more unique and interesting sides of this country? This is the birthplace of one of the world's largest and most controversial religions, attracts millions of people every year. All of them are always ready to die for their faith. Another Saudi Arabia was born from legends and myth. It rises from ancient valleys, sandstone tombs, volcanic fields, and desert horizons that feel borrowed from the gods. And another Saudi Arabia that seems unreal, with the mountains hidden, Viauj mystical canyons, and the Red Sea waters. It would be unfair if we viewed Saudi Arabia solely through the propaganda lens of news. So today you and we will go past the headlines and the political calculations to go deep in the Saudi Arabia that the world doesn't want you to know. Saudi Arabia is the largest country on the Arabian Peninsula and the second largest in the Arab world after Algeria. Archaeological evidence shows that humans have been present on the Arabian Peninsula for approximately 125,000 years, when the region served as a migration corridor between Africa and Eurasia. Later, the Arabian Peninsula became a crucial trading hub, connecting the Mediterranean, the Indian Ocean, and East Africa. By the 7th century, the emergence of Islam in Mecca and Medina transformed the region into the spiritual center of the Islamic world. For centuries afterward, the peninsula existed under tribal structures, principalities, and Ottoman influence. In the early 20th century, Abdulaziz ibn Saud gradually conquered and unified large territories, officially establishing the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in 1932, becoming its first monarch. Geographically, Saudi Arabia covers most of the Arabian Peninsula. There are seas on both sides, the Red Sea to the west, and the Arabian Gulf to the east. There are volcanic fields, blackened by old eruptions. There are mountains rising in the southwest, where the air can turn cool and green. There are long valleys, jagged escarpments, coral coasts, and some of the largest sand deserts on Earth, including the Rub al-Khali. Its culture grew from endurance, hospitality, faith, and honor. In older traditions, generosity toward a guest was a measure of character. The people of the kingdom live between continuity and transformation. Tribal memory still matters. Family remains central. Poetry, coffee dates, and ceremonial dress still carry deep meaning. Yet towering cities, global investment, digital life, and new cultural openings are reshaping daily experience. That contrast is part of its identity. Saudi Arabian architecture is deeply adapted to the hot, dry climate and desert life. Many traditional structures use rammed earth stone, palm-wood thick walls, and small windows to keep cool. Alongside these are fortresses, palaces, markets, and mosques with solid forms and simple, decorative motifs. Today, modern architecture often incorporates large-scale designs, new materials, and inspiration from Islamic heritage. Mecca, a city where movement never truly stops. Throughout the year, millions gather here, forming one of the largest recurring human movements on Earth. The city rests within a basin of rugged mountains in western Saudi Arabia. Its terrain shaped by dry valleys and steep granite ridges. Roads wind through narrow passes, descending into a space where history, faith, and human presence converge. Pilgrims arrive from every direction, their paths converging through streets, corridors, and open courtyards. The sound is constant: footsteps, voices, prayer carried in many languages. The history of Mecca stretches back many centuries long before modern borders defined the region. It stood along ancient trade routes connecting southern Arabia to the Levant. Mecca's significance reaches back to the earliest days of Islam. It is the birthplace of the Prophet Muhammad and the focal point of the Hajj, one of the 5 pillars of the faith. For centuries, this city has functioned as an Islam spiritual capital, drawing millions each year into a shared ritual that transcends geography, culture, and time. And at the center of Mecca, just beyond these walls and gathering paths, stands the place toward which every step is drawn. Rock rises sharply from the desert, its slopes cut by heat, time, and silence. The city falls away below. Jabal Al-Nour, the mountain of light, stands above Mecca as a rugged formation of granite, its surface fractured into steep ridges and narrow paths. The climb is not long, but it is demanding. Loose stone shifts underfoot. The air grows thinner, quieter. With each step, the noise of the city fades, replaced by wind brushing against rock and the distant hum of life far below. Near the summit, the mountain narrows into a small opening. Here a cave appears almost hidden, a tight space carved naturally into the rock. It is not large, barely enough for a few people. Yet this confined space holds one of the most profound moments in human history. It was here in the early 7th century that the Prophet Muhammad is believed to have received the first revelation of the Quran through the angel Gabriel. A single voice in a quiet cave would reshape the spiritual course of millions across the world. Today, pilgrims climb in silence, moving with steady determination. Inside the cave, prayers are whispered. Hands are raised. Only stone, memory, and belief. If you want to visit Jabal Al-Nour and Hegra cave, you should go early in the morning or after the weather cools down. The climb up the rocky, dry, and steep mountain is much more tiring in the midday sun. The climb has about 1,200 steps and usually takes 1 to 2 hours, depending on your fitness level. Wear good grip shoes, water and light but protective clothing. If you go at night, bring a flashlight or phone light. If you want to understand the area better, before or after the climb, you can visit the Hegra Cultural District and Revelation Exhibition in Mecca. This is the official site that helps explain the historical context of Jabal Al-Nour and the first revelation event. From the Sun of Faith at Mecca, let us journey back to the stone manuscripts of lost civilizations at the Al-Ula complex. Al-Ula unfolds as a vast cultural landscape in northwestern Saudi Arabia, where human presence has shaped the desert for thousands of years. Ancient caravan routes once passed through this valley, connecting southern Arabia with the Mediterranean world. Trade in incense, spices, and goods transformed Al-Ula into a vital crossroads long before modern borders existed. The terrain defines its identity. Towering sandstone cliffs rise above palm-filled oases. Narrow canyons cut through rock, creating natural corridors that once guided travelers and merchants. Within these formations, early settlements emerged, including the ancient city of Dardan, and later Lichionite and Nabatean. Architecture here does not separate from nature. Mud brick houses in the old town cluster tightly forming shaded passages designed to protect from heat and conserve space. Walls blend with the desert tones, while interiors remain cool and enclosed. Today, Al-Ula complex hosts festivals that reconnect the complex with global audiences. The Winter Festival at Tantora brings music, art, and performance into the desert. Maraya, the mirrored concert hall, reflects the surrounding cliffs, dissolving architecture into illusion. Art installations emerge between rock formations, blending contemporary vision with ancient ground. Visitors walk among ruins, attend performances under open sky, and witness how past and present intersect without fully merging. Local communities remain part of this rhythm. They still preserve the traditions while adapting to a renewed cultural identity shaped by preservation and tourism. And beyond these valleys of memory, the journey continues into a landscape where entire cities were carved directly into stone. Mardin Saleh looks like it is cut into the desert, and stone stands here as if it remembers hands, names, and laws. Known in antiquity as Hegra or Al-Hijr, this was the southern principal city of the Nabatean kingdom. Between the 1st century before Christ and the 1st century of the Common Era, the Nabateans transformed these sandstone outcrops into a necropolis of monumental tombs. Its architecture is unique for its precision. Tomb facades are carved directly into freestanding sandstone masses. They rise in strict vertical symmetry, with stepped, crowning elements, pilasters, cornices, and doorways. Others carry birds' masks and hybrid decorative forms that reveal Nabatean taste at its most theatrical. Yet the contrast is striking. Outside, grandeur. Inside, austerity. At the most famous tomb, Qaza al-Farid, you will find it standing alone on a single rock, indicating the status of the tomb's owner within the ancient social hierarchy. The most amazing thing here is the rock carving technique. The Nabatean people started from the top of the rock and chiseled their way down to prevent the scaffolding from collapsing. Another rare feature lies above the entrances. Many tombs preserve Nabatean inscriptions that functioned almost like legal documents, recording ownership, burial rights, prohibitions, and dates tied to the reigns of Nabatean kings. And then there is the older shadow around it. In Islamic memory, Madain Saleh is often associated with the people of Thamud and the Prophet Salih. For centuries, Muslims avoided this place, believing it to be cursed after the Thamud tribe rejected the prophecy of the Prophet Salih. Ancient, severe, unfinished in meaning. In Madain Saleh, architecture becomes memory made visible, and the desert keeps the rest to itself. After Madain Saleh, the journey arrives at a different mystery. Here, the desert shapes its own monument. Elephant Rock, known in Arabic as Jabal al-Fil, rises from the sands of Al-Ula as a massive sandstone outcrop. Its form resembles an elephant lowering its trunk toward the ground. It stands about 52 meters high. Wind, rain, and sand eroded the rock over millions of years, gradually exposing the arching trunk, the heavy body, and the sense of movement held within a single block of stone. It appears sculpted by imagination, even though no human hand made it. The stone here is soft enough to be shaped, yet resilient enough to endure, allowing erosion to create forms that seem deliberate without ever being designed. After Elephant Rock, where the desert suggested the shape of life, Al-Wahba crater opens into something harsher and more abstract. This is the largest and deepest crater in Saudi Arabia, with a diameter of about 3,000 meters. From the rim, the landscape appears split between two worlds, the black lava country beyond, and within it is a near-perfect circular depression, almost 2 kilometers across and about 250 meters deep. For years, many believed this crater had been made by a meteorite. Its symmetry encouraged that story. But geologists now identify Al-Wahba as a Mar crater, created not by impact from above, but by violence from below. Molten basalt rose through the crust and met underground water. The contact triggered an explosion, a sudden release of steam and fragmented rock, powerful enough to tear open the earth and leave this broad volcanic cavity behind. Here, nothing falls. Everything expands. Rub al-Khali, the empty quarter, stretches across southern Arabia as one of the largest continuous sand deserts on Earth. Dunes rise and fall in immense waves, some reaching heights of more than 200 meters. This is not a static desert. It is a system in motion where sand migrates, ridges shift. The entire landscapes redraw themselves slowly, almost imperceptibly. The scale overwhelms. Horizon dissolves into haze. Colors shift from pale gold to deep amber as light moves across the dunes. Arabian oryx move across open plains, their pale bodies reflecting against the desert heat. Sand gazelles travel in small groups, adapted to long distances without direct water sources. Reptiles leave brief patterns on the surface, the tracks that vanish within hours. Insects emerge with the night. And then there is the human presence. A single vehicle crosses the dunes, its path temporarily erased by wind within hours. A lone figure stands at the crest of a ridge, reduced to silhouette against an ocean of sand. Camps of the tourist appear at dusk, with low tents, small fires, quiet voices carried briefly across open space. Few people know that beneath those vast layers of sand lie some of the planet's largest oil deposits and the remains of ancient cities like Uba that have been swallowed up. After the endless dunes of Rub al-Khali, the land does something unexpected. It stops, it breaks, and it falls again. Jabal Firain, known as the edge of the world, is a massive limestone cliff formed over millions of years when this region lay beneath an ancient sea. Layer by layer, sediment hardened into rock. Then time lifted it upward, and erosion carved its edges into sheer vertical drops that now stretch for kilometers across the desert. Fossils embedded in the limestone hint at marine life that once filled this region. Old caravan routes passed below these cliffs. From the top, the view feels almost impossible to be real. The land below flattens into a vast plain. While stands at the edge and looking outward, your body reduced to a silhouette against an immense horizon. No barrier separates ground from void. Each step toward the edge carries awareness of height, of space, of the absence of anything to hold on to. At Edge of the World, try walking along the cliff edge to admire the panoramic view of the Tuwaiq escarpment and the seemingly endless desert. The best time to visit is usually late afternoon. The sunset light transforms the cliffs into a surreal orange-yellow hue, almost impossible to replicate anywhere else in the world. Goodbye the sunset at edge of the world. The journey turns toward a place where the desert does something unexpected. Wadi Al-Disah cuts through the mountains of Tabuk as a long, sheltered valley where water has shaped the land instead of erasing it. Towering sandstone cliffs rise on both sides, their vertical faces glowing in shades of red and gold. But below them, the ground transforms. Date palms cluster in dense groves. Grasses spread across damp soil. A narrow stream moves quietly through the valley, reflecting light in shifting fragments. Above dry rock and open sky, below shade, water and growth. The canyon traps moisture, creating a microclimate where vegetation can survive in a region otherwise defined by aridity. The most worthwhile experience is venturing deep into the valley in a 4x4, then dismounting and hiking amidst towering sandstone cliffs, lush palm groves, and small streams winding through the rocky terrain. For a more authentic local experience, consider enjoying a Saudi-style meal at a farm or campsite, savoring Arabic coffee or hot tea. Sunrise or late afternoon are the most photogenic times in Wadi Al-Disah. You can capture stunning images or simply sit and watch the sunlight slide across the rocks. Morning arrives quietly in Rijal Almaa, carried not by noise, but by routine. Doors open. Light touches stone. The village begins again. Set along a narrow valley in the Asir region, Rijal Almaa is built from stacked stone towers, rising several stories high, their facades marked by small windows framed in white and wood. Rijal Almaa Heritage Village was founded over 700 to 900 years ago in the Asir region, strategically located on the trade route connecting Yemen and the Levant with Mecca and Medina. Situated amidst mountain passes, the village quickly developed into a regional trading center, accumulating wealth to build approximately 60 multi-story towers made of stone, clay, and wood. Unlike the deserts beyond, this landscape holds more moisture and greenery. These interiors are where culture lives most clearly. Conversations happen across levels, between windows, rooftops, and shaded corners. The village is vertical, but the community remains closely connected. In Rijal Almaa, culture continues through daily life, in patterns on the walls and in the shared food. At first glance, Ushaiger seems like a memory gathered into walls. Then the details emerge and the past begins to organize itself. Set in the Najd region, northwest of Riyadh, Ushaiger is one of Central Arabia's old stopping points for pilgrims and travelers as they cross the interior toward the holy cities. Over time, tribal families, merchants, and religious scholars shaped the village into a compact urban form adapted to desert life. This is one of the most intact surviving examples of traditional Najdi settlement pattern and domestic architecture. Houses are built primarily of mud brick with thick walls that slow the heat of the day and retain coolness longer inside. Narrow alleyways reduce direct sun and create shaded channels of movement. Wooden doors, small openings, internal courtyards and mosques are all belong to the grammar of Najdi design. After periods of decline and partial abandonment, the restoration of Ushaiger began in 2003 through the efforts of local residents, later supported by the Saudi Tourism and Antiquities Authorities. When visiting Ushaiger Heritage Village, you should walk through the narrow alleys between the ancient mud brick houses to fully appreciate the traditional Najdi architecture. Afterwards, visit the local museums, especially the Al-Salam Museum. It displays weapons tools, clothing, and many artifacts from the old life of the villagers. For a more complete experience, visit the village at sunset. The light at that time makes the village's earthen colors glow beautifully. You remember Ushaiger with its inward-folding mud brick lanes, and here at the Ain Heritage Village, you will remember the change from desert earth to white stone and flowing water. The Ain Heritage Village rises on a gleaming white marble outcrop in Al-Bahar, houses gathered tightly above cultivated slopes as if the mountain itself had lifted them into place. The village is believed to date back more than 400 years, developing in the highland corridor of Tihamat Zahran, where settlement depended on elevation defense and access to a reliable spring. Its architecture is unusually precise. More than 40 stone houses, some rising 2 to 4 stories, were built from polished local stone, rather than the mud brick more common in Central Arabia. Walls are thick, often close to a meter, giving the structures both mass and insulation. Small windows reduce heat and exposure. Internal staircases climb through the center of the houses. A mosque anchors the settlement. Nearby forts once served as defensive lookouts over the surrounding approaches. Forests spread below the houses, sustained by spring water and seasonal rain. Bananas, lemons, basil palms, and aromatic plants could grow here because the mountain held moisture that the wider landscape could not. At the Ain Heritage Village, first walk up the village and weave through the narrow paths between the ancient stone houses. This is the clearest way to appreciate the defensive structures, the multi-story buildings, and the village's unique location on the White Mountain. Next, you should visit the Visitor Center. This center features interactive exhibits, rare photographs, and documentation about the architectural history, culture, and old way of life of the village's inhabitants. A small note: opening hours and visiting conditions may change seasonally or due to conservation efforts, so you should check the official information before you go. If you had to choose one place to understand the soul of Saudi Arabia, it would have to be Diriyah, because the Emirate of Diriyah was the first state of the Saud dynasty, the ruling family of Saudi Arabia to this day. In the 18th century, At-Turaif became the seat of the Emirate of Diriyah and the first capital of the Saudi state. This is a political and religious center whose influence spread far beyond Najd through the alliance between the House of Saud and Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Wahhab. Najdi design here is built from mud brick earth timber and proportion rather than ornament alone. Walls are thick, holding back heat and preserving shade. Narrow passages compress movement and soften the sun. Life in Old Diriyah followed both the rhythm of oasis settlement and statecraft at once. Families lived within tightly organized compounds. Markets, mosques, administrative buildings, and domestic spaces remained closely interwoven. Water from the wadi sustained cultivation. You can move through galleries on traditional architecture, military history, and the city's longer social story. After that, you can dine across from the restored mud brick skyline at Bujari Terrace, attend events, and explore heritage routes. And just beyond this birthplace of power, the story sharpens, where walls battle and ambition converge inside a fortress. Walls rise thick and solid, holding more than structure. They hold a moment that changed everything. Al-Masmak fortress stands in the heart of Riyadh, built in the late 19th century from mud brick, clay, and straw. Its architecture is direct and defensive. High walls enclose a central courtyard. Watchtowers rise at the corners, rounded and heavy, designed to observe and withstand. This is where modern Saudi Arabia began. In 1902, Abdulaziz ibn Saud led a small force to recapture Riyadh. He seized this fortress in a decisive raid that marked the foundation of the Saudi state. Inside the space reveals its diverse function. Rooms once used for governance storage and residents now display artifacts, weapons maps, and narratives of early Saudi history. The courtyard remains open, allowing light to define the structure. For you, walking here is not about scale, it is about proximity. You stand within walls where decisions turned into history. You move through rooms where power was once uncertain, then secured. And after this enclosed moment of stone heat and history, the journey opens again toward a horizon where land gives way to water. the story of Saudi Arabia expands into an entirely different world. Toward water reef and distance, the Red Sea becomes the kingdom's other great frontier. Along Saudi Arabia's western coast, the Red Sea unfolds in layers of striking contrast. Clear lagoons, coral gardens, mangrove edges, seagrass meadows, offshore islands, and deeper blue channels where light falls away quickly. Coral reefs form the living architecture of the sea, while mangroves stabilize the shoreline, and seagrass beds anchor quieter shallows. Together, they create one of the kingdom's most important marine systems. Dugongs move slowly through seagrass meadows, feeding almost entirely on the underwater grasses that sustain them. Their bodies are heavy-rounded and built for calm efficiency rather than speed. Hawksbill turtles navigate coral reefs with narrow pointed beaks designed to reach food hidden in tight reef crevices, while green turtles favor seagrass beds, grazing in shallower water with a broader plant-adapted diet. Dolphins travel with greater fluidity, surfacing in arcs that seem effortless. They use social coordination and echolocation to hunt and move through open water. Each species depends on a different layer of the same system. Lose the habitat and the animal follows. Surveys along Saudi coastlines continue to prioritize these habitats for conservation and monitoring. At the same time, they have become one of the country's most distinctive tourism assets. Diving and snorkeling here are about proximity to turtles, reef, fish, dolphins, and a marine world that still feels unusually intact. However, to travel to the Red Sea safely, you need to monitor the news very carefully. Currently, Egyptian Red Sea resorts in southern Sinai, such as Sharm el-Sheikh, Hurghada, and Marsa Alam, are considered by the UK to be relatively low-risk tourist areas with regular security checks to protect resorts and airports. If you are traveling on the Jordanian side, Aqaba is generally a safer option than most of the area. If you plan to travel to the Red Sea on the Saudi Arabian side, you need to be especially cautious at this time. The Red Sea coast near Yemen and Sudan should be avoided if your goal is a relaxing vacation. Yemen remains a very risky destination, and Sudan is still in a state of extreme instability. And after this open coast of reefs and wandering light, the journey turns back inland toward Riyadh, the modern capital. Riyadh no longer rises like a desert capital content to endure. Across the capital modern architecture speaks in height span and spectacle. Glass towers sharpen the skyline. Wide boulevards carry the city outward in deliberate lines. Financial districts, cultural venues, and new mixed-use developments give Riyadh a dynamic lifestyle. Yet even in its most contemporary projects, the city often reaches back toward Najdi geometry and translates it into steel stone and reflective surfaces. The rhythm of daily life moves at metropolitan speed. Roads remain busy. Construction cranes redraw the horizon. Offices, universities, retail districts, and cultural destinations keep the city in near constant motion. The Riyadh Metro, inaugurated in late 2024 and fully rolled out by early January 2025, has become one of the clearest signs of structural transformation. In projects tied to Vision 2030, Riyadh is a test ground for large-scale smart infrastructure and new models of urban living. That's New Maraba, with its vast downtown plan, and the Mukab, a technologically advanced landmark with immersive digital experiences. In Riyadh, you should divide your experience into 3 layers. The first layer is history. Visit Diriyah and At-Turaif, described by UNESCO as the first capital of the Saudi state, and a prime example of Najdi architecture. This is where Riyadh once stood as the center of Saudi power. The second layer is national memory. Al-Masmak fortress is linked to Ibn Saud's recapture of Riyadh. The King Abdulaziz Historical Center and National Museum help you connect tribal history, Islam dynasty, and the formation of the modern nation into a coherent whole. The third layer is the new landscape and rhythm of life. Within the city, visit Riyadh Season and areas like Boulevard City if you want to see the new face of entertainment consumerism and development ambition of the capital. This is where the journey through Saudi Arabia finds its most complete ending, in a building that reflects the land so perfectly it almost disappears into it. Maraya Concert Hall. Set in Ashar Valley, near Al-Ula, Maraya stands as a vast mirrored cube, its exterior clad in reflective panels that return the sandstone cliffs, desert light, and open sky back to themselves. The name itself means mirrors in Arabic, and the idea is carried to its absolute limit: architecture as illusion, architecture as disappearance. Guinness World Records recognizes it as the world's largest mirrored building, with a mirrored facade covering 9,740 square meters. Inside, the effect changes from spectacle to control. Maraya is a multi-purpose venue designed for concerts, performances, conferences, and cultural events. The halls and auditoriums shaped for precision rather than excess. The interior is refined and measured. Even its upper spaces continue that quiet elegance, including the rooftop restaurant Maraya Social. And so, Saudi Arabia ends here, in a hall that reflects everything the journey has revealed: stone light, scale, ambition, and the desire to turn landscape itself into art. From sacred cities, where faith shapes every movement, to deserts that erase direction and redefine scale. From ancient villages carved into mountains to modern skylines rising with intention and ambition. Saudi Arabia, a land of contrast, of stone and glass, of silence and expansion, of memory and projection. And when the journey ends, what remains is this landscape is still becoming. If this journey has given you a deeper understanding of the world, continue to follow us by subscribing to the channel. Thank you for watching, and see you on the next journey.